Hi, we're Couples Guide to Gaming. I'm Caroline,
And I'm Richard.
and today we are going to have a quick video-ish, maybe, about The Forest, because we used to play MMOs together, still kind of do.
We go in and out, yeah.
Yeah, but it's a popular MMO that we're not mentioning. And every couple of months we get bored of said MMO and try and find games we can tolerate, and games we can actually play together.
Yeah, there's a lot out there that works really well when you're playing on your own, but
Or PvP.
Or yeah, aiming at PvP. But then when you're looking at it to play with somebody, finding something that you can play together is occasionally difficult.
Fair as well.
Yeah.
What greatly brings us to our first point.
So before you start, because I'm going to catch you there,
Okay.
we're going to be looking today at The Forest.
I did say that.
I don't think you did. I really don't.
Well, anyway, we've mentioned The Forest now, so we all know what game we're playing. Hopefully, The Forest, just for anyone who didn't pick up the first 5 times. So, going back to my original point of swiftly, so confidently moving on to our first point, because I really just gave us the intro to that and now we haven't got it. How fair is the game?
Well, it seems pretty fair, to be honest.
And when we say fair, we don't mean, on the scale of, cannibals versus people. We mean like to play together loot-wise, that kind of thing. There's no worry about gear drops.
No, because everything you use, you make, and everything you get generally gets stored because you have such a small inventory. You're putting it down in the camp, and as long as you're in a camp together, which is generally the best way to play it from our perspective, from our point of view. Unless you have an argument, then you go off and find somewhere else to camp for the night. But yeah, if you have a camp, you tend to have things like drying racks for skins and stuff, and that's what you make into armour. Weapon-wise, you can make a bow. I think that's about as far as it goes. Oh, that and a spear, which is sticks. Everybody gets that.
And the rest you pick up, but you can both pick those up. So that's like the decent weapons.
The decent weapons and things tend to be in locations where you load into them, like the caves, which we'll get to later on. And they're there for both of you. There's no
fighting.
No, there's no fighting. It's obviously a good idea to let your partner know, or the person
don't just pick it up and then run away and be like, oh yeah, it was back there.
Finding things again in this game.
The caves. We won't discuss the caves. They're mazes. So the next point was how the looting works, and so it was like
we've kind of gone into it.
We have. So the decent items or storyline items you can pick up together, so you don't have to worry about that. But the suitcases.
Yes, but obviously the game starts with you in a plane crash, and you loot the plane. The plane seems to be very much the same as the caves. You can loot everything in there because you have to be able to start with something. You start starving, hungry, and really thirsty, and there's food and things like that on the plane, along with, I believe, a story item and a tray if you're playing in multiplayer that's used for trading.
You really got to pick that up.
Which, if you don't get that, you're going to struggle with trading.
The first time we played
we didn't even know that there was any trading in the game the first time we played through.
And I don't think you can drop the items on the floor and re-pick them up, can you?
No,
you
can't drop the resources. You can put things down, like the sticks and the stones.
Oh no, we made a shelf, didn't we? And we were putting all the things on the shelf, and then the other person can pick them up.
Though the tray sometimes, it may have changed, because the first time we actually played through the game, and our only actual experience with the game was, 50 odd hours?
56 hours, which is
roughly. And we played through the game, got to the end of the story.
But it was in early access.
Because it was in early access, there was no audio in the story, and there were updates coming out.
You're going too far ahead.
I know, we're jumping ahead, but
we need to discuss the combat next.
We're going to get there. I'm talking about the looting. I'm gonna circle back.
Don't circle back.
But basically, things may have changed with the trade, but it didn't work very well because we were talking about the trading, and it was important to let them know that it was early access, which we hadn't got to.
Well,
anyway,
so the combat.
We haven't finished with the looting.
Oh, for God's sakes! Okay.
Because I've spoken about the plane and the fact that you need the stuff, but when you get off the plane, there's suitcases all over the place, and they're strewn throughout the forest, as it's called, and it is a forest. And you whack them open with your axe that you both get from the plane.
Yeah.
And in there usually is some cloth, because they're full of clothes, and an item that you can get, things like pills, batteries. There's a tennis ball
alcohol and stuff.
Yeah, booze
to
and
drink, survival things.
Soda, which is fun, but
I always thought it was soy sauce.
Yeah. when it comes to looting them, the first person, or there's the 2 items in there, both of you can pick the cloth up, but only one of you can pick up the, I suppose, special
I called it
item.
a bonus item.
Bonus
I
item
thought
works,
sounded
yeah.
quite nice.
And then, obviously, the resources strewn throughout the forest, you pick up just one of them. You don't get to pick up 2 loads of stone and 2 loads of sticks from where you're going.
I was going to say, well, you wouldn't do like actually, but that gets to a different point.
Yeah, that moves on to a different point. So you wanted to talk about the combat next.
Yeah, well, the only thing I wanted to mention, because we went from an MMO where you've got spell rotations and that kind of thing, this obviously isn't like that. It's not like even other survival games we've played. There's a bit more involved when it comes to fighting, where there's definitely just a hack and slash.
Yeah, well, other survival games, they have like tiers of weapons that you learn to craft and things like that. This, you start with an axe from the plane. You can upgrade it using teeth and feathers and other things, and cloth. Cloth's quite useful because you can set it on fire. So you've got a torch that is a weapon, which is fantastic because you can only carry a torch.
Especially in a cave.
So yeah, dark areas, nighttime and caves, fantastic. If you can wrap cloth around your axe, you can still beat the cannibals and mutants off without.
And you can set them on fire.
Yeah,
I think some of them are even scared of fire, aren't they?
I think the cannibals are actually scared of fire, so having a fire in your camp.
But oddly, but also it attracts them.
Yeah, they know where you are then, and they come back in the daytime.
Well, we'll give them, I think I put on the back of this piece of paper we're reading off.
To give them a special. Well, we're not reading off it so much. They're key points.
They're key points, but I put a lot of effort into it, so I'm going to mention my key points page. But yeah, we were going to give them like a special mention at some point.
But yeah, combat's hack and slash if you've got an axe.
It's not really the point to the game, though, is it? It's just like it makes sense that you'd have to defend yourself.
Yeah, the ultimate goal to the game is to go and find Timmy, I think his name is.
Oh, we just call him that little boy.
And you progress through the storyline to get to that, and the they're not zombies, they're cannibals and mutants get in your way, so you have to fight them. Like I said, you can craft a bow and arrow, and everything else you pick up. So.
So the next one was the building. What we thought was really awesome actually, because with different games we played, again we're not really mentioning them because we're going to go into them and you're going to keep talking about the same game. But normally Richard's the one who does all the building because I absolutely detest it because I can't put them the right way.
You're not creative.
But it's not just that, like I find it really tedious, so I normally go off and do all the gathering. That's our dog, because of course he has to make noise. And then Richard will do the building. What's really boring actually for both people, and also...
Well, it doesn't help with... That leads into another point that we didn't mention in how fair the game is. In other games where you're crafting in your inventory items to build, or in crafting stations where you're building, say, a wall, and you craft the wall, and then you place the wall down, you get experience for crafting the wall, and because the way that we play, to start with, we'll both go out gathering, you tend to get more experience for crafting something than you do for chopping a tree down.
Yeah. There's
no experience in this game, there's no levels.
What's nice, because it means like if I'm doing lunch or some other stuff, you can carry on playing. I mean, I don't let you because, you know, it's unfair.
But it does mean that there's no getting ahead.
Yeah. But with the building, my bit I really enjoyed about it is, though you can do free building, we haven't really done a huge amount of that because there's no real need to.
And it's tricky.
It is tricky. Well, it was when we first did it. It might have changed. But it's the fact that you make actual items, and so I can spend a good 20 minutes placing them just where I want them, and then
I can run in and build them all.
Yeah, well, we can both do that because if we both say it needs 4 logs and 3 stones, we can both pick up. Yeah, we can both pick up the logs and the stones and just put them down until it's got all the items it needs. So you both feel part of the build. It's not just like, what did you do today? Well, I built this amazing camp. What did you do?
Yeah, well, as you can see from the video that's going to be going on in the background.
You should say is going on in
the background. Yeah, it is going on in the background. Where Caroline's laying out the camp because she's a little bit...
Did you say special?
I was going to say OCD, but it's not really OCD. You like things to look pretty.
Yeah.
I like things to be practical.
Yeah.
Fortunately, your prettiness generally is quite practical. So in this game specifically, you lay out the camp, and then we both go and gather the resources and build and stuff like that. And also, when placing the blueprints, I think probably would be the best name for them. When you put the blueprints down, things like the log holders and the stick holders and the stone holders, you have the option to change them to larger ones. And in the video, you'll see that I go up and changed them to the larger ones while Caroline's carrying on building the camp because it's something that I think she forgot to do when she was putting them down.
I didn't know you could.
So there you go.
Because that's something, again, you're more practical. I was like, oh, what really annoyed me is I lined them up so perfectly as the smaller ones,
and they didn't look the same.
I went off, I came back, and they were massive, and I was like, well, that's not where I put them. Now they're overlapping. So I just spent like 45 minutes making this very symmetrical camp just to find out that it's not symmetrical anymore. Well, really, I was going to burn the whole thing down and start again, but I let it go.
It is fair, and that leads on to like the resource gathering, going back a little bit to the looting, because it kind of ties in here. When you chop a tree down, you don't get wood in your inventory that you use. It falls down and then becomes logs. Not as realistic as you'd hope, but it was really realistic, and it's something that really impressed me with this game, along with the graphics that need to have a special mention. We were playing it on a toaster in a PC case, basically. Really old graphics cards that were second hand, and in all fairness, I think my computer was coming up to 12 years old, and I could still play it on high settings, and we got a new graphics card.
No, we had it on low, and it looked exactly the same as high.
Yeah, we had it on low because we were playing multiplayer, and we were worried about it. But
as well.
we then upgraded the graphics cards. Same computer, same processor, quad-core Intel Core 2 or Core Quad or something stupid like that. Regardless, it's very old. And 8 gigs of memory. I think we'd got up to 8 gigs of memory by that point, and it was still really nice looking. And then we got the new graphics cards, and I went in, I put it on Ultra, and I went in and I was getting 60 frames per second, and the video was recorded on high just because I was hosting.
It looks the same either
and
way,
we were recording, and we weren't sure whether the new computers would be able to do both as well as they did. I mean, it did fine.
And also, a real big thing to mention, like most of the time for you, it's the sky, isn't it? Like in every game,
the skybox
really messes.
Really
whereas this one just.
And this one's got rain and lightning
and the water as well is so beautiful, and it just doesn't do anything, even when the rain's trickling on it. Because I used to have the issue with the water, and you were with the sky. So doing anything
really
was so hard.
But then the computers were different, whereas now we've got identical computers. So if I have an issue with something, generally Caroline will have an issue with something.
Whether I notice it or not is a whole different story.
But yeah, the trees fall down when you chop them down, and you actually chop them down. You take chunks out of the tree. So I could half chop a tree down, then get distracted by a rabbit that ran past me and I want to kill it. And Caroline can come along and finish chopping the tree down, and it will fall down and break into 5 or 6 logs, and you can only carry 2 logs at a time, so you have to make the log carrying thing.
Sorry, because you're talking about the hunting, we have mentioned that we'll go back to in a second, but we need to go back to the combat, because we were going to mention how you don't attack each other, like you can hurt each other. Or you're not going to mention?
Oh yeah, we completely forgot that.
Well, that's it, because we've got the other piece of paper with something.
I think it's over there.
And then this one hasn't got that. We're
As
very
you can see,
yeah,
so we're very prepared. Very prepared.
You're not prepared. But we, so with the combat, just to really circle right back to the beginning of the video, if you guys are still here, and if you are, good job. You can actually hit each other, but in the clip that we've got of us fighting, you can see that it looks really organised, doesn't it? Because we both went into the cave.
Yeah, in the clip when we go into the cave, which will be after the clip.
It'll be somewhere.
It'll be around now-ish.
You can go back to it.
Yeah, it'll be around now-ish because I'll make sure it's there. I drop down into the cave and get attacked because there's bad guys in the cave. I mean, who'd have thought it? And then as I'm attacking it, it runs back to behind where Caroline's going to drop in. And I hear, because we wear headphones when we were playing, I hear a noise behind me. Caves are awesome for the sound.
They're really good, yeah.
Hear a noise behind me, turn round, and it's another mutant cannibal thing that's charging at me. So I'm fighting that. Caroline is then fighting the one that I was fighting before. But in the earlier combat that we had before we went down into the cave, Caroline got a bit more injured than me. So as Caroline kills her mob, I suppose, good word, mutant, mine abandons the combat with me because Caroline's weaker, Caroline's been hurt a bit more, and runs off to fight her. So the mechanics, again, going back to the cannibals and the mechanics of the game, they're fantastic. I mean, we were running through just to have another look because, as we said, we only played it in early access, and we've come back to it now. It's been updated a couple of times, and it's actually in full release. And we were running away from a mutant, and we decided we were going to turn around and hit it, and it ran up a tree. It climbed a tree. We didn't even know they could do that. No. So they've they've made it better than it was, and it was really good. Anyway.
Yeah, I want to really mention the worshipping. So our original camp that we didn't specifically this time not gone on the same bit, because if you end up being on this particular cliff that we could put in there for people who just want to cheat the game, basically it means you only need to block off one side of your camp instead of all four sides. Anyway, it overlooked a beach, and every morning, at the same time every morning, these cannibals would go along and worship. It was the Red Man, wasn't it?
Yeah, the Red Man they worshipped. Again, storyline, spoilers, we don't want to go into that with this one.
Well, yeah, but I don't know how that's changed, and it wasn't, we won't go into it, doesn't matter, because I don't want to ruin it. But anyway, so they're worshipping something, or something may or may not have been a Red Man, could be a blue guy.
They go down there, they kneel down.
But it's very interesting to watch them, and also, if you, again, I don't know if it's changed, but when we did it, if you killed, so there's women and men in there, if you killed one of their either siblings or children, the person or the adult or the other sibling would mourn.
They would cry over the dead body.
So if you killed the body and you didn't take it when you left it there, you could kind of go hide in a bush, wait it out, and they would come over and cry.
It just shows good mechanics. It's along the lines of when you first start the game, if you don't kill them the moment you start the game,
they give you a bit of time.
They give you a bit of time to build up. Whereas if you go in there all guns blazing, not that you have a gun, and kill as many as you can, all that you can see, they will come for you. And
it basically gets harder, and also that it gets harder as you start to kill bosses and more.
I think it just generally gets harder over the time that you're playing. So the longer you play the game, the more chance you have of getting them.
Well, I don't know if it's changed when I looked into it the first time, because remember we had real issues with loads of them. We had hordes and hordes turning up.
We actually, saying that, we have started the game twice, because we were originally, I think the camp that you're talking about was in a different place.
It was, yeah.
And there we seemed to be between two camps, and it seemed to be on one of their paths that they travelled.
They call each other as well. So if we were fighting one group, they would call for the other camp to come help them, and so you'd end up with like.
Yeah, but also they send out, I suppose they're like scouts.
Yeah.
They send out smaller groups or single cannibals on their own. And when they find you, they don't come in and attack you. They run back to their camp to let the camp know where you are.
Because also there's a tier of them. When you get, it's really fascinating. You could probably do like a documentary on them actually.
And here we see the camp.
But then you've got like the skinnies is what you were talking about in the cave.
Yeah,
they've changed them. They're like the crack addicts of but they've got no food and they're a bit like that.
Yeah.
Look a bit like the wizard. But anyway, so you've got them, and then you've got the next tier who are slightly dressed. You know, they've kind of got necklaces on and something. The women anyway, have got something covering their down belows, but not their up tops. And then you've got the further ones on from that, who was the guy leading the religious thing.
You get like group leaders, I suppose.
And it's just really interesting because obviously they send out the skinnies first, and you'll get hundreds, well not hundreds, but you'll get like 3 or 4 of them coming for you, and then you'll kind of get the other ones come along as well. So it's really interesting.
In the caves, you've got what we thought were bosses, but you have mutants in the caves, and through the 50 odd hours of gameplay, we got to the point where we'd gone in most of the caves and we'd done a lot of things. We'd killed a lot of
bar the sinkhole that we never went into for some reason.
We didn't go up into the cold area because it was cold and because we didn't have the stuff to deal with that. We didn't really advance as far as we
were really focusing on the storyline more than the actual gameplay.
We'd focus a bit more on exploring and things like that if we were to play it again.
And these extra things here, like the gardening, the breeding of bunnies, and the rafts and boats we haven't looked at.
There are obviously boats and rafts in the game, as you've just brought up, and gardening.
I will shove it in there.
Yeah, you wanted to put it in there, so that seems like a reasonable place to go. We don't have any footage of them because when we did it before, we completely forgot to get it, but when we did it before, the gardening, you could plant seeds,
it wasn't
but we didn't really know what we needed to do with them.
No.
And looking into it, you can make stews and things like that, so it's something we're definitely
the cooking into. we just threw meat on a fire, or we just dried it on the drying rack, so we didn't bother making meals.
No. And the rafts, we made the rafts, but we made a single person raft to start with, sorry.
No, we didn't. We made the double one to start off with because normally you drive and I point.
No, I'm sure we had a single person one, but we found that you kept falling off.
Oh right.
And we thought this is silliness. How's this helpful? So we ended up with 2 rafts, which then also meant that I couldn't ask Caroline to go and make me a cup of coffee while I drove somewhere. Drove, I suppose you do drive a raft. While I paddled somewhere. So we looked into it, and there's like a cabin-style raft, and you found sitting in that, I could steer it and stuff. Horrible to drive because you've got no field of vision on it. And then there's also like a larger raft where you're required to have 2 people paddling.
Well, we were really excited about it, but again at the time it didn't work, so it's another thing we'd like to go back on. And I have to mention my Blooming Bunnies. The bunnies I was so excited for. Again, don't know if it's in the game, so we'll probably go into it and have a look.
Supposed to be in the game. You could.
Don't ruin it. Well, I want to mention my bunnies.
You can build traps to capture animals. You can capture bunnies to kill them and eat them. It makes it a little bit easier because they are horrible to hunt, because the hunting is terrible.
Well, unless you find the spawn locations, and then you can just wait there with the spear. That's what I was doing.
Yeah.
Because as the turtle spawns, depends how much you play the game. Like we did do a fair bit of just milling around because I did find all the spawn locations, and I would just sit there waiting for them.
We also probably spent at least an hour rebuilding the camp every time because we had an issue with the game because it was in early access.
My bunnies.
Yeah, go.
So my bunnies then, after you've caught yourself 2 bunnies, you're supposed to be able to make a cage. What I did do was a decent sized cage, and you're supposed to be able to breed the bunnies. Now for me, being a girl, and the bunnies are adorable, and also they're quite tasty, I was so excited because I thought you could perhaps put quite a few hutches together and make an ultimate bunny pen, much like the dodos is what I was going for, but we can discuss the dodos next time we do that game. And so I was very excited to do it, but sadly, though I left them for like 3 or 4 in-game days, they didn't work at all. They were just
well, you looked into it afterwards, and it wasn't.
And working. We got hungry and needed to eat the bunnies. It was really sad.
We ate the captured bunnies.
But then, so we're hoping now.
Yeah, we're hoping that obviously it's
a long time.
Been updated since the early access with some bug fixes and stuff like that. So hopefully a lot of the things that didn't work for us will work through next time.
Do you know what would be really sad is if we go back to do like a let's play or something, and then they've just taken the bunnies out, not the bunnies themselves,
but the breeding,
if they couldn't get to work, and then I'm like really excited for nothing.
But we will potentially be doing a let's play or
I think so. We've got a lot.
We enjoyed going in to get the footage that we got.
But also that goes back to our overview and how much we enjoyed the game, because
we've skipped the how much is there actually to do together,
because we've already talked about it. I think we're quite happy with that. The only thing I do want to say is the caves, because we kept saying we'd go back to the caves. The caves for me, so I was pregnant at the time.
Yes.
When we first started playing the game,
and we actually started playing solo.
I was going to say originally we were going to play solo because I got so annoyed with Richard with the other game we'd recently played, and he was like the leader everything, and I kind of just got like the bum end of it.
Go get me some more wood, please.
Or the back of your head for everything. So I'd never really got to experience it. So these caves I was really excited about. Well, the best thing about it is if you've got headphones in, if you haven't, you're going to really upset the rest of your household. So wear headphones. And you can hear them screaming and giggling like the cannibals that are down there. And you can hear stones falling, and you can hear like sticks being trodden on.
Yeah, the water dripping.
And so you can hear them sneaking up on you. So you're going through this really dark cave, unless you cheat and turn up your settings, but you shouldn't do that, like experience it properly. So it's me, somewhat pregnant, quite edgy anyway, going through and hearing all these noises, and all of a sudden a cannibal will just jump out at you and basically try and put me into labour. What was great fun, but also terrifying.
Yeah, so we ended up playing the multiplayer through it because then you had someone in there with you.
Well, you had to. I wouldn't have worded it quite that way, but no, I got scared. I wasn't really scared, but it was just. It's definitely one of the, what was they called? Jump scares. It was definitely a jump scare situation, and also I found it really difficult because you normally go first, and I didn't really get to experience the cave when I was in there because I was constantly on lookout and on edge looking for these stupid cannibals. Because when you first start out, obviously you don't have the best weapons, so on and so forth.
And you don't actually. We didn't know what was down there. We didn't know.
No, we had no idea. And so I didn't know how big it was or anything else. You'd got a far bit through it than I did.
I would say, to add to that, which doesn't really work in your favour here, but you are terrible when it comes to caves. You get lost all the time.
Oh, I'm awful. Yeah, I really hate caves. Anything
doesn't matter
underground.
what game it is.
No, it doesn't.
Go into an enclosed
space.
It's
because it looks kind of similar, and if you can't leave like breadcrumbs behind you.
We did in the end. You can put torches down.
I know we did.
Build something. I don't think you can build much down there, but you can definitely.
But it's like Minecraft. I'd be gone for the month. Like I'm just going to starve down here. It's actually easier for me to die and then send Richard down there to get my stuff for me, and me just to be back at the camp. It's too much work. So it worked out well there. So we've mentioned the cannibals, mentioned the caves. The caves, I didn't want to talk too much about. They're awesome, but I didn't want to talk about the different things down there because actually it's something people really get to experience.
And you'll get to see it in our Let's Play.
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, if you want to, but if you don't want spoilers, then don't do it.
I think
you haven't played the game.
With our aim for that, we're going to be playing more just generally playing the
Very
game
relaxed
and not focusing so much on the storyline.
Yeah.
We will, if we get to the point of doing the storyline, when we've got to the point of showing off as much as we can about the game.
We'll mention it.
We'll definitely do next video. We're going to have spoilers.
So then you guys don't have to watch
So if you don't want to see the storyline,
because
the
I've
next
done that
series
before
of videos is going to be focused on
with different games where you're kind of watching them and you're kind of at the same point as them, and then next thing you know, you're like,
I had that with the game I was playing recently, which isn't multiplayer, so I was playing it on my own.
Subnautica.
Subnautica. I was watching one of the YouTubers, fantastic YouTuber. I can't remember his name.
I said don't promote them. I mean,
I'm going to promote them.
Unless you can get them to promote us back.
Well, I watch him because he generally plays the same sort of games as I do, and he was playing through it, and I watched a couple of videos, and then I was kind of at the same point as him, and then it got to the point where I didn't have enough time to play the game, and to keep up with his videos, he was getting ahead of me and effectively spoiling the game as I got there, going through the storyline. So I ended up having to stop watching his videos and wait. And we don't want that.
No.
We don't want to spoil anything, especially if you're having a look at the game, because we've pushed.
And also, it's not a huge game either, so like if you spoil the storyline, that's kind of it really, because it's not. There's other than the cannibals, and once you've built yourself a decent camp up, you don't really need to think about them. It's quite automatic, isn't it?
It might not be a long Let's Play, but it's definitely something that I think we're interested in doing.
So just quickly to finish this up, we've got with my magical piece of paper. We've done the overview, obviously, gone into everything there. So it's basically how much we enjoyed the game, and actually it's a game that The Forest for me I always go back to, not to play, but every game, especially graphics wise, compares to The Forest. Oh, but The Forest is so smooth. Oh yeah, but that waterfall compared to The Forest waterfall, seriously though.
Well, we've played a lot of survival games because
most of
they tend to be more multiplayer friendly.
And also we're really efficient at it, so when we go into a survival game, we just generally, Richard will kind of scope out an area to make a camp and go, does this look alright? I go, sure, and I'll straight away start getting the materials to make said camp, and so we kind of flow into it quite easily, don't we?
And it happened with this game, we flowed into it both times we started.
The first one, no, it was the second one we played, wasn't it?
Yes, we'd played one before, but then that got updated past the ability for our computers to play it. But yeah, we played this game, and it's very
beautiful,
very, very pretty to run around the forest and things like and see the things that are going on.
It's kind of perfect for everybody though, because if you like a lot of gore, like it is quite gory. You can chop off limbs and eat them.
Well, you can.
And also,
you can chop them up.
We haven't mentioned that we didn't know when we were first playing through that actually your body count or whatever it is, it kind of got the book.
Yeah, I think
it tells you, doesn't it? Like
we'll have to look into it.
Stuff.
Yeah, you've got this insanity. I'll get
so
a screenshot of the
like
stats.
if you just eat the same old crap, rubbish, whatever, but if you eat like nothing but berries, then it turns out that your body fat goes down, your muscle goes down or something, isn't it?
There is sort of you want to have a semi-balanced diet because that makes you faster.
And
running, if you sprint, you then eventually sprint faster and
I think
build your muscles up.
What I really love about it is the people who made it were obviously very passionate about it, and we went from a very unpassionate game where the people who made it really just gave up on it. I think, well, actually both of them gave up on them, and so then to go to the forest where it really feels like, even though the storyline, I know it's been changed since then, it felt like they were kind of going two paths.
You had, because you've got, as we've mentioned, the mutants and the cannibals, the storyline tends to follow along.
I wasn't going to say anything. I wasn't going to say anything
more than the other one, so it felt a little bit. And
like one of them didn't really need to be there because of it. But it's, I'm sorry.
We're touching on dangerous
I don't want to mention
now,
it, but so the nice thing about it is, it says, it's so in depth. It's a bit like Stardew. I will mention that because I can't imagine ever playing that again. But even though it's one person, like they spent so much time on it and put so much effort into it, and the Forest really feels the same way. Like you really feel
it's definitely a high up there on the list
game. And for was it £15?
Yeah,
it's so worth it.
I think we may have got it in a sale.
We did,
and
it was like
if we
$7.99.
didn't have it now and we saw it, we would buy it.
Absolutely. But I don't think you would have done, because it was actually my brother who forced us into it. I didn't like the look of it at all. I was like, what, you're running around a forest? Great fun. And I hate like the zombie games, so we've played quite a few since then, but it wasn't my cup of tea. So this video as well will hopefully encourage a couple of people, especially
we struggled with first person, but the game, because the game was so good looking.
Yeah. It was. It's a sexy game.
Yeah.
It is. It kind of.
It did help move you from third person to first person.
It always used to give me travel sickness and stuff. Whereas that again, this game doesn't seem to. It's not a huge amount of head bobbing and stuff. So like once you turn your mouse sensitivity down to where you want it.
Yeah, because it starts up really high.
Yeah, so it makes you feel really sick. So just turn that right down. I've got mine on like 1.
No, you had it on 5, I think.
I think it's gone down since then. But anyway, it doesn't matter. And so, if nothing else, we're hoping this video kind of encourages other couples to play it. And also, you know, you can play with multiple people as well. So if you've got like a group of friends, and you can play it single player.
Yeah.
So if it turns out your partner doesn't like it.
But also, you can play it single player, and because of the way the game is designed, which is something I've just kind of caught a glimpse of at the end of this overview, because the game is designed very well, if you're playing with your partner, with a group of friends, however you want to play, but multiplayer, but you also want to have a look at it on your own, things move.
Yeah, they do.
You crash in the back part of a plane. The cockpit, we actually, from what we knew of it, the cockpit was in the same place regardless.
And we're telling your friend like how to start the game.
Yeah.
Like, oh, go here. And they were like, no, that doesn't look, that's not what I've got.
Yeah, and then we went in to get some of this footage, and we ran down the bank because we happened to be quite close to where it was, and I was like, I think it's just down there on that island. And we ran down there and it wasn't.
No, it's
and we're like, well, now we're going to have to find it again because there's stuff in there.
What's great, because it kind of encourages you to. Whereas other games force you, like taking away flying and things of that nature, force you to explore the world on foot. This game, though there's no other option, you want to explore it. Yeah. You don't feel forced into it.
But
it's
also,
like, you know,
it's not a game. I suppose you could learn all of their locations that they could potentially be, but it's not a game when you're playing through it the second or third time. That you're going to 100% know where you're going, so it's forcing you to look again at the forest, and you will see things.
And also, because the forest is obviously just a forest, it's very easy to get yourself lost. Like when I was going through on this video, I was like, oh yes, follow me, it's just over here, like I remember from the first time. No, I've got no idea where I was.
Completely different location.
You weren't where we thought you were.
There are some landmarks, like the yacht, the sinkhole, the yacht.
I expect the waterfalls probably do
a big
as well.
tree. Yeah, I think the general lay of the land is the same. So the sinkhole and the big tree would be counted in that. But there's a yacht off the coast.
You mean a yatchet?
Yeah, yatchet if you're Caroline. And that's there all the time. So you would be able to get landmarks and figure out where you are in comparison to where you were in a previous game. But I still don't think that would take away from the replayability. I still think that it's definitely there. Especially if you're playing on your own, over playing with other people. Obviously, you wouldn't want to have 2 saves single player at the same time.
Well, I think we had quite a few by the end of it, but we won't go into that. It was like a whole thing with that person joining because we didn't put a password on, so we end up making the same camp. I'm going into it.
Yeah.
So anyway, just to sum up, it's a really good game. We really enjoyed it. We're gonna probably play it again.
Yeah, we're gonna. I definitely want to do.
You're really keen
I definitely
to do
want to do a playthrough of it.
Because also, you know, it's quite nice to see, because you don't often get to see other couples playing.
Yeah.
And we've seen a couple of other couples playing. That's a really fun sentence to say. And it's really interesting actually to see. We feel we're quite egotistical about that, aren't we? We're kind of like, oh, we're really efficient compared to other couples.
We're quite efficient when it comes to starting, so we advance quickly.
But the best thing is, it'd be really great if we do that, and then other people are like, no mate, you're really rubbish.
You're really slow in comparison.
Compared to us.
But we want to know, and to kind of wrap this video up.
Say it.
If you like the video, we'd like you to like it, and please subscribe.
And don't forget to comment.
Yeah.
Oh, the bell. Press the bell.
Yeah. If you subscribe, we will soon hopefully be putting up a playthrough of the forest, and we'll be moving on to other games.
Also give us recommendations, because all the games we're going through we've already played, and we've played really like to the end of the time really, like we're kind of done with them.
For example, Ark, we've got I've got 300 odd hours on that. We've played. It'd
So-
be a good idea to go through some that we've played.
I wouldn't do that right
Yeah.
now because that's
Yeah.
a whole other video we can do. And these poor people
Well-
have probably been sat here for like 45 minutes going, it will end soon. I'm sure it will. I think
So yeah, okay then we'll cut us both off there. So like the video if you liked it, dislike it if you disliked it. There is a dislike on.
don't blooming
But-
tell them
But
then.
don't hit that one. We don't want them.
Okay.
Subscribe and press the bell so Start again. Press the bell so that YouTube can let you know when we post another video.
Also, you're going straight to hell.
Why?
You sold your soul to YouTube.
Well, it has to be done. Anyway,
See you
thank you
next
and
time.
see you in the next video.
Bye.